want to thank everyone who's coming on board on our Zoom tonight, and on behalf of the Stony Creek Museum, and also thank the James Boxstone Memorial Library for hosting us tonight. And I want to say also thank you so much to the Stony Creek Quarry and Darrell, Petit, and Tom Cleveland, who are going to present from the Stony Creek Quarry Corporation a recent project developments, and we're really looking forward to this talk. So without further ado, I'm sending it over to Darrell and Tom. Thank you so much.
This is Tom Cleveland, and thank you very much, Stony Creek Museum and Blackstone Library, for inviting us to present today. Darrell and I, as Mary Lee indicated, we work for the Stony Creek Quarry Corporation, and we're going to present to you about a new sustainable stone standard that the quarry has been very instrumental in creating through dimension stone quarries and fabrication plants all over North America and even the world. And this standard, this sustainable stone standard, is basically lays out some operating standards for quarries and stone fabricators to reduce energy usage, reduce water usage, carbon emissions, as well as metrics for social governance and environmental practices. Stony Creek, the quarry, Stony Creek Quarry helped initiate this standard. We worked on writing it, on managing the whole process. It took us something like 6 years to do. And importantly, we, even though we're a small quarry, we were the third quarry in North America to certify to the standard. And then Darrell will speak to a recent project of ours, the new Statue of Liberty Museum. This standard is very important because we're all in a worldwide race to reduce carbon emissions to zero by 2050. If we don't, we're going to have serious temperature rise. As you can see, the red line, we want to keep it at that blue line, which is a temperature rise of only 1.5 degrees Celsius. Here's an overview of the quarry, a recent overview. This is the active quarry. It's about 7 acres out of the 46 acres that the Stony Creek Quarry Corporation leases from the town. Doug Anderson is the owner of the company that leases this quarry land. And he and his family have been a big part of the shoreline communities of Branford and Guilford for several generations. So it's important that he's a local guy. The quarry is located off of Route 146 in the Stony Creek part of Branford. It's surrounded by 300 plus acres of open space that's owned by the town and some by the Branford Land Trust. This is a good picture because it shows you, if you can follow my cursor, shows you the solid stone benches where we're and ledges that we're quarrying now. That's where we get our stone block, the best grade of stone out of. Up here is a development area which has fractured and weathered stone that doesn't meet the grade for dimension stone. We sorted into various use categories. These bigger blocks that you can see under my cursor might be armor stones for seawalls, Army Corps of Engineer projects, and then it goes down a value chain for building wall stone, veneer stone, and then the smaller stone is trucked over to easterly part of our operation here and crushed into aggregate and crushed stone. This is our core product. This is a 25-ton block. It's without any cracks, and it's 10 feet long, 5 feet wide, 6 feet wide, 6 by 5. That's our core product. That kind of a block can be sent out to a fabrication plant. It'll be cut into various sizes. Often it's cut into a slab like this, which is typically 1¼ inches thick. This is what your countertop grade material is. It can be thicker or thinner, and then it's polished or surface treated to the appropriate use. On your left, you can see something which has been polished. On your right is a thermal surface treatment on our stone. So I'm going to be going over the development of the standard. We are a small quarry, but we believe that we're able to have an outsized influence because of our longevity. Our stone is in many cities all over the world, really. Sydney, Singapore, but mostly New York, Boston, DC, particularly New York, and we have we've used that notoriety or sort of our standing in the industry to really help develop this sustainable stone standard, which is really called here the ANSI NSC 373 standard for sustainable dimension stone production. The mission of the standards is really to reduce the environmental footprint of the stone industry in around the world. The way the standard was created is I'll tell you a little bit about that and its connection to the green building movement. It's recognized by the LEED and Living Building Challenge. I want to take a little moment also to introduce the concept of low embodied carbon. The natural stone has already been manufactured by the earth, and it, as a result, no, we don't have to fire up a furnace or do much to really create this material, unlike glass or steel or cement. And embodied carbon is that carbon which was emitted in the manufacture, transport, and probably and use of materials. And the embodied carbon is being scrutinized very carefully in the building trades now, and probably 5 or 10 years, we're going to have limits about the amount of embodied carbon per square foot that a building can have. The good thing about natural stone is that we are very, very low on a comparative basis to other competitive building materials. For instance, a square meter of natural stone on a facade of a building, the envelope of a building, has 2.5 times, or a glass facade, like a typical steel and glass building you might see, has 2.5 times the embodied carbon that natural stone does, per square meter, and that's going to be a big, very important criteria for stone going forward. Here's the full and formal name of the standard. It's quite a mouthful. We're working on getting something short and snappy with our notorious marketing department. Let's see, we were part of the Natural Stone Council. The way you develop a standard is there's a standard which controls how you name or how you create a standard. There were three parties, basically: the Natural Stone Council, where Stony Creek was a member, the NSF is a third-party auditor. They're active in 155 countries around the world. There's a whole industry of companies like NSF that administer and create standards. And it was created on a cooperative and collaborative basis with the American National Standards Institute. The natural stone, this standard, importantly, really only applies to dimensional and building stone, and not to aggregate or crushed stone. And importantly, it doesn't apply to artificial or engineered stone like quartz, and I say quartz with air quotes because it really is just a crushed stone dust that is mixed with a polymer resin and to create an artificial stone. So the big categories are sandstone, granite, limestone, marble, slate. Those are the areas that the types of stone that this standard applies to. The goals of the standard are really to establish this sort of a baseline covering environmental, ecological, social responsibility, and human health practices for the industry. We use this standard really to help educate the building professions, definitely architects, structural engineers on certified stone, owners of properties that want to go green can use our certified stone and get additional points. It is recognized by the Green Building Standards of LEED and Living Building Challenge. Those are the big ones in the United States. It's an international standard and applies also to fabricators of stone, as well as quarries. So there are 9 different sections that all have requirements. 9 sections of the standards. There are 9. They all have requirements. You can get additional bonus points for attaining different levels of other requirements in these sections, and you can end up with a bronze, silver, gold, or platinum moniker on your certification, just like LEED or other building standards. So here's a picture of and I'll talk about the water management issues that we work with in the quarry. The standard really emphasizes recycling all of our processed water. We're lucky that almost all of our water flows into this active quarry hole or the old quarry hole. We recycle it many times and use it for cooling the wire saw, which is the new way that we're extracting most of the blocks out of the ledges. We saw it with a diamond encrusted wire that has water flowing over it to cool it. We also use the water to clean some of our crushed aggregate operation. We monitor all of the energy that the quarry uses. We use a lot of diesel fuel running the big machines, our loaders and excavators, our crusher everything pretty much runs on diesel. We are always looking at ways to reduce our diesel consumption. We're going to be cutting through a big quarry wall and dramatically reducing the mileage that the loader here has to travel in order to be able to load blocks out of the quarry onto a truck. Importantly, the standard requires and enables a buyer to get a complete chain of custody of where the stone was quarried, who carried it to the fabricator, which fabricator cut it. All of these things are important to the green building standards like LEED or Living Building Challenge to be able to prove that certified stone was used on their job. So all certified stone is 100% traceable back to its quarry of origin. Here's a good overhead view of the quarry. This is the active quarry here. This is the old quarry here. This is the entrance on Quarry Road. And the lease lines run roughly following my cursor. It's some 46 acres, as I indicated before. We've cut out, we have two sort of ecosystem boundaries that we're not going to be quarrying in, this rocky knoll and wetland area here. The ravine and wetland area up on our northeast quadrant. Here's where our crushing is going on, and these are piles of aggregate waiting to be bought. Health and human safety is very important. We monitor all of our chemicals. We have safety, personal protective gear for all of the employees. We've gone to pretty much one machine, one man, one machine kind of work. We do not do too much of individual jackhammer and splitting stones with feathers and wedges and sledgehammers. It reduces back injuries and keeps individuals away from danger, like rock shadows. Corporate governance is a big part of the standard. Typical provisions, prohibitions on forced labor, sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, racial discrimination. We engage with the community, and education is a big part of the quarry. We have probably 500, 600 people that come through the quarry on an annual basis, often in programs with the American Institute of Architects or the American Society of Landscape Architects. This might be the Yale School of Architecture here. We have Wesleyan's geology department. We try to get every third grade class in Branford and Guilford to have a field trip to the quarry. This is one of those walls that's been cut by our wire saw, this yellow machine over there. We now have nine quarries that have certified to the, or 9 companies that are certified to the standard. The biggest in North America, Cold Spring and Polycore, importantly, are there. We've got 40 different kinds of stone, 20 odd quarries. We expect to have 3 more quarries coming in internationally, as well as several in the United States. again, importantly, Stony Creek was the third one to attain this standard. Again, the standard is recognized by LEED with the U.S. Green Building Council and the Living Building Challenge. And architects, you can get additional points towards your LEED certifications and your Living Building Challenge certifications by using certified stone. We very much encourage everybody in the building industry to specify sustainable stone in your bid documents. And you're very welcome to speak with Darrell and myself about this standard. Now I'll turn it over to Darrell, who'll take you through the new Statue of Liberty Museum that we contributed stone towards.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
If you could shift to the next image. The Statue of Liberty in all of her glory. This is a gift of the people of France to the United States. The pedestal is built from Stony Creek Granite from Beatty's quarries in Ellis Island in Guilford, Connecticut. This was an extraordinary collaboration between sculptor Bartholdi, engineer Eiffel, that's of the architect greatest Richard Morris Hunt. Ground was first broken in April 1883. A great mathematical precision was employed at the foundation. On April 1886, the last block of the pedestal was placed. And October 28, 1886. The foot of the pedestal to the top of the pedestal is 89 feet. And the estimated cost was about $125,000. It took 9 months to build. It's approximately 400 blocks of granite. Next slide. When designing Liberty and the base, Richard Morris Hunt and sculptor Bartholdi were thinking of one of the wonders of the world, specifically the great lighthouse of Faroe Island, protecting the harbor of Alexandria, Egypt, providing safety for those who sailed the seas, but also it had great spiritual meaning, serving as a beacon. And in building these types of monumental edifices, the people really meant to demonstrate that they lived in harmony with their gods. Next slide. Here you see Richard Morris Hunt's scheme for the pedestal. Pharaoh 1, Pharaoh 2 on the left and the middle were rejected as too costly in 1883. And finally, a design was agreed upon in the summer of 1884. And you see that on the far right. These are on display in the new Statue of Liberty Museum in the color gray here and not in Stony Creek pink. Next slide. The design transformed the middle tier into a well-defined central recessed porch referred to as a Logia. And to emphasize the separate surfaces, Morris Hunt used smooth stone for the porch and roughened stone at the sides. It may have been intended to relate to the pedestal of the rusticated granite piers of the recently completed Brooklyn Bridge, of which we are also Stony Creek represented in the anchorages. Note the horizontal band of shields resembling the ones at the top of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, as well as dedicatory shields of the Parthenon in Athens. These are a favorite source of neoclassical design. Next. So here we see Liberty Island, Statue of Liberty, and in the far top left-hand corner, the new Statue of Liberty Museum. And FX Collaborative was the architect. And just to give a little bit of background narrative, 10 years ago, upgrades were made to the original pedestal And we were very concerned back then to learn that the information listed our granite as a general pink granite from Connecticut. So we got involved to help correct that information. And 6 years ago, when Stony Creek Granite was correctly listed as the material for the new Statue of Liberty Museum, we were happy to see our involvement come to fruition. We worked closely with FX Collaborative from the onset to help them with their design strategies, to make our material clearly available and affordable. And we were also in a position to team up with one of our most experienced US partners, North Carolina Granite. Richard Morris Hunt's design for the pedestal calls attention to itself, but directs the attention to the Statue of Liberty. The objective of FX Collaborative's museum was very similar, to direct the attention to liberty. Next slide. FX Collaborative and landscape architect Cornell Rothschild also had very high sustainable goals. They wanted to reach a LEED Gold certification. They approached 30% energy cost reduction, 36% water use reduction, flood resilience, to employ landscape features that capture and filter stormwater, optimize the massing and orientation of the building. The building must have a high performance envelope. These were some of their goals, as well as, of course, local and sustainable materials, of which we would fall under. The Stony Creek Granite being ANSI NSC 373 Gold certified certainly made a difference. Next slide. The site location on the island was selected based on a number of factors. Most important, perhaps, was the ground floor elevation set up above the floodplain to prevent future Hurricane Sandy type events from damaging the museum. If you note here, the plaza level is essentially empty, the area beneath the museum, and this lifts up the ground floor on a plinth. The supporting walls are precast and punctured with several flood openings to allow floodwater to move beneath without any structural concern. Next slide. The landscape architect, Cornell Rothschild and Associates, worked with ecologists and green roof experts to research native plants. All the plants are native, designed to preserve and enhance the site's ecological habitat. And here you see the fountain grasses, which also capture storm water and, of course, aesthetically create a pleasing contrast to the Stony Creek Granite and the steel and glass vitrine that encloses the original torch of the Statue of Liberty. Next slide. Phelps Construction Group of New Jersey was the general contractor. And here we're seeing a view from the Statue of Liberty back towards the museum under construction. You can see the island was open, but the museum area closed for construction, which made things even more complicated. You can also see here more clearly the ground floor elevation and supporting precast walls set up above the floodplain. Next slide. This is a 26,000 square foot museum. And in effect, it's a great grand staircase into the building and up to an outdoor room atop the museum for expansive viewing of the Statue of Liberty. Out towards New York City, out to the port, upward to the heavens and beyond. Previously, only 20% of the 4.5 million visitors a year could access the inside of the pedestal where most of the artifacts were on display. So this was really about making a museum that was accessible for everyone and open to the public in a really expandable way. The people behind the granite. The core here of men and women of the Stony Creek Quarry, who quarried the block and helped orchestrate the project. You're looking from the left, Richard Atkinson with 35 years experience or more. Stacy Bandecki, 15 years experience. Thomas Hickson, 35 plus years experience, and myself on the right with more than 30 years experience. And these are the core people who harvested the blocks and are behind the Stony Creek Granite for this project. Next slide. We quarried approximately 40 blocks that were shipped to our partner, North Carolina Granite, and cut into mostly 2.5-inch thick thermal finished panels for the cladding, extensive architectural steps, and plaza pavers, including the rooftop garden pavers. I note here the beautiful variegated nature of the Stony Creek Granite. That's the black biotite and muscovite running through the feldspars and quartz. Next slide. The logistics of building on Liberty Island this time was perhaps not as challenging as in 1884, when there were often shenanigans and barges were held up for days, causing delays. But the construction logistics and deadlines here were also challenging here in 2017. The truck transport of the stone from quarry to loading site, barges from site to Liberty Island, and then offloaded and installed with cranes and manpower in the installation. Again, Phelps Construction, the GC, did an extraordinary job and brought the project in on time and on budget, which is quite extraordinary these days with such an incredible project of significance and scale. Next slide. The original torch was deinstalled from the statue and is now preserved as a museum artifact, shown here being installed in the main exhibition of the museum. A note here, from the glass looking out, we see Statue of Liberty. And this viewing experience from the inside of the museum and from atop the museum was a primary architectural objective. Next slide. Backbrook Masonry of New Jersey was the stone installers. And here you're seeing the installation showing the Stony Creek Granite being laid into place as an elaborate main central staircase. The tolerances were exact. Details were very close up and visual and experienced in a tactile way, which is quite different than experiencing cladding on a 55-story skyscraper where the surface finish is never really seen nor touched. Here, we really had to manage and craft the surfaces and the details. And this was done, I think, with the highest level of craftsmanship by North Carolina Granite. We also helped the architect early on with details of corners that were going to take a lot of high traffic, and consulted on the thicknesses of the stone in relation to a very elaborate underground snowmelt system. Next slide. Here we can envision how it is to walk up the steps. These are the thermal finish, and the thermal finish is often used as a type of finish that achieves an abrasion and a static coefficient of friction, which is used for outdoor horizontal surfaces, especially in these public plazas. You can see here, note the anti-slip strips on the edges. Again, walking up these stairs, millions of visitors are able to experience a tactile finish by on the left here, you see edges and corners and surfaces. So these were all handled in a seamless way. Next slide. This is the view from atop the roof of the museum looking out towards Liberty, which is a view that did not exist before. You were always looking up at Liberty from the ground, and now we have a view which is pretty much on the level of the pedestal, and you are much closer really to Lady Liberty. The other thing I want to point out is the surface finish, a thermal finish, which is a kind of flame finish in Stony Creek, has the effect in the sunlight of a certain vibrant crystal reflectivity. And it's something that's unique, I think, to our stone and often called out by architects and landscape architects that know our material. And I quote Professor David Evans at Yale, whose geological description is, "These are internal crystal structures of the minerals breaking along natural cleavage planes of relatively weak atomic bonds. Potassium feldspar," that's the pink, "is the most visible mineral to exhibit this kind of fracture along cleavage planes in the Stony Creek granite, which is what's causing this vibrant reflectivity, which is really extraordinary and beautiful." Next slide. Here is another surface finish on the old pedestal. This is a custom hand-pointed surface finish of Stony Creek on the pedestal, handcrafted more than a century ago. Shows the flow structure defined by the black mineral biotite. When I see this, I see skill and toil of human labor and craftsmanship to make that hand-pointed finish. Something that I see in these types of elements. I see the person and the craftsmanship that go into it. And this is a type of surface finish that's quite hard to find these days in modern times. Next slide. Again, these are people behind the projects and the stone. Here are our elders, the late Carla Bellastraci with Uncle Ross, who both have very, very deep roots in the quarry and link us to our history. During the last decade, I worked very closely with Carl and the folks at the National Park Service, Liberty Island, to enable them to more accurately describe our granite. And through Carl's research, helped them discover the original quarry that supplied the granite for the Statue of Liberty pedestal. There are many other people to thank in our community, too many to mention really here tonight, but next slide. I'd like to mention Maryellen McDonald of Stony Creek, who helped us immeasurably on this Statue of Liberty Museum project. She is our special friend of the Quarry for Life. Here you see May 16th, 2019 was the ribbon cutting ceremony of the Statue of Liberty Museum. With many dignitaries, Mayor de Blasio, National Park Service officials, and on the far right, Diane von Furstenberg, who led the public fundraising campaign for the $100 million project that came in on time. I leave here with a really beautiful photograph of Sean Kernan, Stony Creek photographer and friend of the quarry, of the old surfaces of the pedestal looking out towards Lower Manhattan. Thank you very much.
So that's it.
Okay, awesome. That was very interesting. If anybody has questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat. I have two waiting right now. So someone wants to know, how many more years do you think the quarry can exist given the space limitations?
Well, this is Tom Cleveland. We've done some preliminary estimates, and it's well over 100 years of a block. At even double our current production levels. So it's a lot. There's a lot of material here.
Okay.
I would also add that the production rates are related really to the construction and architecture trends. So the production rates have varied greatly over the last 30 to 40, 50 years. And we see stone coming back now with sustainability and concentration on local materials. But we certainly see a lot more skyscrapers or buildings in glass than we do of stone. So I think that would be one factor. And certainly another factor is the labor that this doesn't seem to be as evident as it was at the turn of the century. This is a very specific type of activity, quarrying and harvesting blocks of granite. And I think it's quite difficult, frankly, to find men and women that want to take on this type of work these days.
I can speak to what type of chemicals are used on site. Yeah, I mean, we look at spray paint as being a chemical, because if you've and we've gone through all of the the transmission fluids, all of the different kinds of fluids that our equipment runs on. We look very closely at the ingredients in it. We run it through an online screen that gives us all of the chemical constituents, and we rank all of these, all of the typical things that you use in any industrial operation, I guess, and spray paint is one of those. And I personally have been shocked at how dangerous spray paint is, and we all wear rubber gloves. We wear respirators if we need to. But most importantly, we've gone through and culled out, materials that we don't use much, or can find substitutes for, to reduce the containers of materials you have around to a minimum.
Okay. Someone wants to know, why did you have to send the stone to North Carolina?
Well, I can answer that. We didn't have to send the stone to North Carolina, but it isn't on projects of this type our decision. But it certainly has a lot to do with price. It has also a lot to do with skill and expertise. All of these stone fabricators on the North Atlantic seacoast, up and down, all the way up probably to northern Quebec now, have varying degrees of expertise, and so that has part of it. The other aspect is the collaborative, and there was a very strong relationship between the installer and North Carolina Granite. So for a project of this type, you really want to have a team that has experience together on other projects. These are just some factors. Of course, there's others.
Okay. Somebody is asking, does the quarry actually provide finished stone for immediate architectural use?
Well, the quarry produces block. It also does a lot of work now at this level of experience. We are seeing the men here with 30 plus years experience of landscape architectural work. We don't cut architectural cut to size dimensional product. We do more and more supply the work by working with collaborators like North Carolina, like Qua, like Structural, like some of the other fabricators, Connecticut Stone as well. There are clients who would prefer to have us supervise and supply the architectural cut to size. Columbia University is a client of ours for over a century, who works with us, and we team up. But in the end, we are the ones supplying the finished product. We are not the ones cutting it, but we are the ones orchestrating the project.
Okay. Someone wants to know, how long did the museum take from start to finish?
Well, about 2 years. I think construction was more like a year and a half, but there was a lot of work up front, preparation. The logistics were quite complicated on the island. So that's pretty good, I would say. And a lot of that had to do with really a public and private joint venture between the National Park Service, Department of the Interior, and the Liberty Island Foundation. And excellent people to make this happen on time and on budget.
So we have a couple questions related to sort of sustainability, the future of Stony Creek Quarry. For example, do you guys have a plan if and when the quarry is ever depleted, what would happen to the land?
Well, I'll speak to that. And Darrell can also chime in on. First of all, the land is owned. The land is owned by the town of Branford. We have a close relationship with the Parks and Open Space Authority, which is the group which the arm of the town of Branford, which we pay rent and royalties to the Parks and Open Space Authority, and we will be working with them to as the quarry in years to come, we hope, as the resource gets depleted, we'll use the quarrying process to begin shaping the land to an alternative use that'll fit in with the open space around it, and there are great examples of old quarries and how towns then use them thereafter. There'll probably be some water features. Try to make it as amenable to the local wildlife. We get ravens and lots of birds might want to nest on the rock faces. So that's a partial answer. And I see this Yale sustainability MBA sustainability group. We have a pretty close relationship with the Yale graduate schools. We work very closely with the School of Forestry on getting our initial certification done with one of their crack students.
Okay, so someone has an interesting hypothetical that, Stony Creek Granite is, I would assume it's, it makes up the bedrock of different parts of town. Do you guys ever scout a location, say if they're widening the highway, would you ever say, hey, we'll take this granite and use it? Or is that outside of your allowable activities?
I don't think we've speculated on that. But interesting thing to investigate.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see. Someone has a question about, do you know a ballpark estimate of how many people have been employed over time? Just basically, what sort of impact has the quarry had on, I guess, workers in town?
Well, impact. This is a community that was formed by immigrants coming to this part of the coastline to quarry. I don't think I could come up with a ballpark about how many have gone through. Hundreds, thousands. It's a very difficult number to come up with, but I think it's fair to say this has been a part of the fabric since the origins of the quarry. And it still is a very vital part of the community and continues to be a way in which the community finds its roots, but is now also a way in which the quarry is interacting in the world in a sustainable fashion as a leader in the stone world in this aspect. So that's a abbreviated way to answer that question.
Fair enough.
Tom is going through a few of the images that are of our projects since 2009. And, you're looking here at the El Grasso Technical School in Groton, which was completed, I think, a few years ago. Moser Pylon Nelson were the architect. And somebody was asking questions about the school. So we have contributed Stony Creek to a number of these projects. Naugatuck Community College is another project that we have done work on. They were looking for sustainability, and Stony Creek being the local material. There it is there. So we did the interior floors, we did exterior base course and landscape architecture elements. This was an interesting client that explicitly wanted the local material and explicitly made reference to wanting Stony Creek represented in their college. We love to hear these types of definitive statements. We hear it from Columbia because it's material that was used by McKinley White in their campus, and it's a continuation of the palette. But it's wonderful to hear it from new clients building new buildings in Connecticut and wanting to use the local material. We've done some work at Quinnipiac with Centerbrook Architects. We've done work recently at Yale West for landscape enhancements. We've added some Stony Creek to the Guilford High School. We're contributing some Stony Creek to the Francis Walsh School. So we are continuing to add Stony Creek in new construction in Connecticut.
Okay.
I see somebody ask a question about Philip Johnson's AT&T building. Tom, if you could go back to that image, but
Right.
this is a great project that was pivotal to Stony Creek's history, and it really represented the beginnings of modernity for Stony Creek. We upgraded our equipment, our quarry methods to a project of this, which was really massive. I think it was 400 to 1,000 cubic feet of material. And Philip Johnson was the architect. It was a very noteworthy addition to the Manhattan skyline. So like many projects, this was completed in 1984. It is now a landmark building being restored or renovated, I guess you could say, on the ground levels by Snohetta, another leading architect. So we, being the original material, now get called out as the material of choice for the renovations. And so we are now participating again on this building. And this is typical of many of our projects, where we participate in match to existing buildings or even conditions like Lower Manhattan itself, the Battery, or campuses like Columbia, Cleveland Clinic. These are places that have used it. This is a picture of the Second Division Memorial in the President's Park in Washington, D.C. It was built in the 1930s. We are now contributing Stony Creek to modifications to this. And this is another project where Stony Creek was used. And so now they have to use the original material, want to use the original material. And we have had a hand in putting together a team for the veterans and for the, this is another National Park Service project here. So more and more we are being contacted at the origins of things to help shepherd a project through its completion. These are just some of the projects. This is the Battery in Lower Manhattan, where the client, the Battery Conservancy, also made a definitive statement saying they wanted the same stone that was used in the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. So of course that's us. And that's 1,000 linear feet of a rusticated split face seat wall that was completed by Polycore Group, one of the largest now stone operations in the world. Cornell Rothschild was the landscape architect. We are participating more and more in landscape plaza projects for the general public, more than we are really in skyscrapers. So we are participating more with this kind of cubic work for outdoor public places. Tom's showing here the Cooper Hewitt, the Smithsonian Cooper Hewitt National Museum of Design in Manhattan on Madison Avenue, where they had to replace and repair the 12-foot by 7-foot by about 8-inch or 12-inch thick monumental sidewalk pavers. So again, a historic project where the material was taken out and either repaired or replaced with Stony Creek again in, I think this was 2014.
Are there any special challenges with a project like this? Like, I would imagine methods have changed over time. So is the look of the stone ever impacted when you're trying to like replace a historical section?
Yes, it is actually quite complicated. So this is a very specific type of issue, but the surface finish back then would have been hand tooled. And over the years, because of pedestrian foot traffic, that surface finish wore down to really a wonderfully beautiful patina, but a slippery patina. So then you have a condition here where people are slipping on the stones, and that becomes problematic and litigious. So the museum has to either repurpose, resurface, or in some cases, the material had been cracked, repair. So they pulled it out, and we worked with Structural Stone in Rhode Island to flame, which is to thermal finish to create this coefficient of friction, which is now the acceptable surface finish for these high traffic foot areas. And you know, we had to cut oversized blocks, really 12 feet by 7 feet. These are huge blocks to replace some of the pavers that were damaged. So every project really offers a specific problem and a solution. And I would say, you know, more and more we are involved in these really custom projects, and we are asked to cut a specific custom dimension block so that there's less waste in the fabrication, or in this case, we have to meet a certain size, dimension of finished product.
Okay, so we're just at about 7:30. I don't know, Tom or Darrell, if there's anything in the chat that you definitely want to get to.
I was hoping Darrell could talk to Bob Whitworth, who says, is Stony Creek Granite cost competitive with terrazzo for high pedestrian use for lobbies and assembly areas? Maybe Bob wants to buy granite.
Maybe Bob should call us. Yeah, we could look into that, but I don't know really. Terrazzo is not our world, but we certainly participate in projects where terrazzo was used, and we are used as an accent.
Yeah,
I think that terrazzo was spec at some point for the Naugatuck Community College lobby, and for reasons that are better for us, the architect in the end and client decided to go with Stony Creek tiles. So that might be a way into answering that question.
Okay, we have a lot of history related questions. I don't know, do you guys feel you're well versed enough in history to answer them?
Darrell is very well versed in history, I think.
Because someone wants to know when the pink granite was first discovered.
That's a pretty wide question, and I would defer that to Yale School of Geology, Professor David Evans, because the pink granite is manifest around the world. We are part of a formation that extends throughout, and there's a really rich narrative written in the Flesh and Stone book that's available at the Blackstone Library. So, we are working a specific variation on that. We are Stony Creek Granite, so we are, different. This is unique, and its mineral content makeup is different than a pink granite from Winnipeg, pink granite from Namibia, pink granite from China, from Brazil, from Wisconsin, from Salisbury. So we do compete in that world, but we are a distinct and unique mineral makeup. And that is why Stony Creek has its own specific spec as well. Architects specing it can't just spec a pink granite from Connecticut. They have to spec something much more factual. And in fact, now landscape architects and architects are specing our geological coordinates so that it really leads us to the one last remaining origin of the material, which is the Stony Creek Quarry.
That was very fascinating, very informative. Thank you guys so much. I think we're just at about 7:30 now. So I guess we'll wrap it up. And like I said, I'll have this recording available in the next couple of days, and I'll send a link to everybody who registered. So you should see that in your inboxes very soon. But thank you again.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now.